All right, today we are finding the area of another type of polygon. This time it will be trapezoids. So we are going to add another area formula.
Is this one harder than the last one?
This one is a little more involved. I would not call it harder. There are a couple steps on these. But first, we are going to find the area of a parallelogram, a rhombus, and another parallelogram, and another parallelogram at the bottom. On number 1, it says we're finding the area of a parallelogram. What is the formula for that? Base times height. What is the base of this parallelogram? 12, and the height? 12 times 6. On number 1 is 72 units squared. You just put 72, that's fine. They didn't put units. Number 2, we are finding the area of a rhombus. Can someone raise their hand and tell me the formula that I need to use? Brandon. The area is equal to 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. So I need someone to raise their hand and tell me the lengths of my diagonals on number 2. David.
16. Oh, wait, hold on. 18 and 32.
18 and 32. We need the whole diagonal, so we have to add the pieces together to get the entire diagonals. You can do this a couple different ways. One way is to take half of 18, which is, and then take 9 times 32. 288 units squared. 9 plus 9. You got to add those 2 pieces to get the whole diagonal. On number 3, we have another parallelogram. This time they tell us the area. What are we supposed to be finding? The height. So if we use that same formula, the area of a parallelogram is base times height. What am I plugging in for my capital A? 27. My base is 3. I do not know my height. Keon, what should I do? Divide by 3. My height is 9. This time they did give us units. Just meters.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Okay, we only square it when we're finding area. All right, the last question's a little hard to read on the screen, but you've got it on your page. A parallelogram has a height of 8 feet and an area of 96 square feet. Find the base. So again, on this one, what am I plugging in for capital A? 96 equals, what am I plugging in for B? What am I plugging in for B right now? Nothing. I don't know it. What about my height? What do I do to get B alone? Angel? Divide 96 by 8, and yes, B equals 12. My units should be feet. All right, before we get to our formula for the area of a trapezoid, we have to be able to identify a few things about it. In a trapezoid, we have to be able to identify the height and the bases. There are 2 bases. We will have to identify both of them. How do I know what the height of my trapezoid is? What am I looking for to indicate to me that I have a height, Julian? A right angle. So where I form that right angle between the top and bottom, or sometimes it'll be side to side of a trapezoid, that is going to tell me my height. The height has to occur at a right angle, perpendicular. So So in this case, my height is segment AE. We also need to be able to identify the bases of a trapezoid. The bases are the sides that are parallel to each other. Remember, in a trapezoid, you only have one pair of parallel sides. Who can tell me what my parallel sides should be in this trapezoid? Angel? DC and AB are the ones that are parallel to each other. All right, here we have our area formula for a trapezoid. The area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times the height times the sum of the bases, or B1 plus B2. Now, hopefully the letters are enough to tell you what they stand for, but H is the height. B1 and B2 are both bases. I do not believe it's hard to add 2 numbers together and then multiply 3 numbers together. So no, I do not think this should be too hard. Once again, these diagrams are easier to see on your paper probably than on the board. But we have to be able to identify all the pieces that we need in order to calculate our area. So on number 1, A equals 1/2 times the height. Who can tell me what my height is? It is 10 centimeters times, inside that second set of parentheses that I'm putting, I have to add my bases together. What are my 2 bases? 15 and 12.
Is there any way you can like put those in already added together?
I want to see everything plugged in initially first. Now on the next step, if you wanted to take half of 10 at the same time that you're adding 15 and 12, I would be okay with that. Okay? I'm going to show it one step at a time on this first one. 15 plus 12 is 27. Again, you can do this 2 different ways. You can multiply your 10 and 27, then take half of it. Or you can take half of 10 and multiply it to 27. Which way you want to do it? Multiply them. Okay, so if we take 10 times 27, we get 270, and half of 270 is 135. My units, centimeters squared. Number 2, what am I plugging in for my height? 7. Now, the height is sideways this time, but that's fine. It's still the distance between the bases. It's still what's perpendicular. They just turned it on its side. It really doesn't change anything about how we calculate the area. What are my 2 bases? 10 and 6. It does not matter what order you add your bases in. Kiapa.
Maybe if we make it to the end of those today, but tomorrow, can you go back to the area of the trapezoid picture?
Yes. All right. We need to add 10 and 6. We get 16. How do you want to proceed?
I said tomorrow, I mean Monday.
Okay. How are we going to proceed with this problem? Okay, we can multiply 16 and 7. What do we get?
What?
112. And then we have to take half of that. So our area is 56 inches squared. So that's fine. If you have a right trapezoid, sometimes the height will be on the trapezoid itself instead of inside. It happens that way with triangles sometimes too. Doesn't change how we approach it. We're going to take 1/2 of, what's my height? 8. What are my two bases? 17 and 11. The bases get added together first. 28. So we have A equals 1/2 times 8 times 28. What's half of 8? 4 times 28 gives me 112 yards squared. On the back, we are now given the area, and we are asked to find the missing information. So we are just going to plug it in and then solve for whatever it is that we don't know yet. I'm going to take away example 5 while we work on example 4, just so I have enough room. So my formula says that I'm taking A equals 1/2 H times B1 plus B2. What am I plugging in for capital A? 18 equals 1/2 times my H. H, I don't know what it is yet. What about base 1 and base 2? 7 and 5. Okay, I can still combine the 7 and 5 in parentheses and I get 12. So 18 equals 1/2 H times 12. Keon? Yep, we can take half of 12. If it's all multiplication, you can do it in whatever order you want. So what's half of 12? 18 equals 6 times H. Divide off the 6. The height is 3 meters. Millimeters would have 2 M's. Is it squared? No, Julian.
I don't know why, but I just doubled the area and then divided by 12.
You can also double the area and divide. You can get rid of this 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. If you prefer to do it that way, you can. You can eliminate 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. If you do it that way, that's fine. You just got to show me how you're doing it. All right, on number 5. Again, we're starting off with the same formula. What am I plugging in for capital A?
342
342.
equals 1/2 times 12.
1/2 times, my height is 12. It is on the outside of the trapezoid this time.
B1 plus 31.
Hey, man, what you mean? How you be knowing which one it is?
Which one the height is?
Yeah.
The one that is perpendicular between the other two. It's got to touch the top and the bottom or both sides, whichever way they have it turned. And it has to have the right angle by it.
B1 plus 31.
We don't know one of our bases. If you want to leave it as B1, you can, or you can just call it B, because the other one is changing to a 31. All right, a couple different ways we could go about doing this problem also. I prefer multiplying the 12 by the 1/2. Again, if you prefer to multiply both sides by 2, you can. I like to just combine these because half of 12 is 6. What do you think I want to do with that 6 next? We have 2 options. Distribute is one option. What's the other option? Divide. So we can either distribute it into the parentheses or we can divide it off of both sides. Dividing, it's going to make your numbers smaller quicker. Distributing, it's going to give you bigger numbers you have to work with. So I prefer divide, but if it makes more sense to you to distribute, you should get the same answer in the end either way. If we divide 342 by 6, what do we get? 57 equals B plus 31. We can drop those parentheses now that those 6's cancel each other out. Last step. Subtract 31. We get that B1 equals 26 yards. On the next couple problems, these ones are more involved. They do say in the directions we are going to find the height using the Pythagorean theorem. And then we'll be able to find the area. So what was our formula from the Pythagorean theorem? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So, where does our right triangle occur here in this trapezoid? What side? On the left side. So if I highlight this triangle, that's my right triangle. They gave us two sides. We should be able to find the last side. So we're using A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What do you want to plug in for A?
9.
The 9. What should I plug in for B?
15.
Disagree.
H.
The H. Why do I have to save the 15 to go in for C? It's the hypotenuse. So we have to save the 15 to go in for the C. Do we have questions about how we plug these in? What is 9 squared? 81 plus H squared equals 225. To get H alone, I'm going to subtract 81. H squared equals 144. Last up, square root both sides. What is my height? 12. Now that I have my height, this is using two formulas. That's it. You're making me tempted to have a whole quiz of these on Monday. Next, we're going to find the area using that formula that we learned today. There are a couple things that we have to be careful of because now we've got more numbers than we need on our trapezoid. So there's one of these numbers we will not use now that we're just finding the area. What is the height of my trapezoid? Now the bases is where it gets a little tricky. What's one of my bases? No. 20 is one of them. What's the other one? 31. It doesn't say 31. We need the whole bottom base, which means we have to combine the 9 and the 22. We do not use the 15 from that side. That is not a height, it's not a base. We don't use it for the area part. We used it to find the height. We don't then reuse it when we're finding area. What questions do we have about how I plugged things in here?
Which one did you say we didn't use?
We didn't use the 15 this time around. It was used down here to find H. We don't use it to find area. David.
It's basically any number that ends up kind of on that side is kind of worthless at that time.
When we move on to the area part, yes.
So like on this one, that 30 would be completely worthless.
When we're doing the area part. We need it.
I know,
Okay,
but
yeah.
just for the area.
Yes. Just for the area, it'd be worthless.
Come on, Missy.
What should I do?
Take half of 12.
Half of 12 is?
6.
What else do I need to do?
Add that together.
Add those together, we get
51.
51.
Then subtract it.
Whoa.
You multiply,
We're multiplying.
and you get 306.
My units were not given, so I won't worry about them. If you want to put u squared, you can. We, again, have to find the height before we can find the area. So we're going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared again. What am I plugging in for a? 18. What about b? H and c? 18 squared. 30 squared. How do we get h alone? Subtract h squared equals,
576.
and then square root. The height is 24. All right, next we have to find our area using that information. 1/2 times, what's my height?
24.
24 times, I need my bases.
34 plus 43.
34 is one of them. 43 is what we get when we add the 18 and the 25 to find the other one. Half of 24. 34 plus 43. 12 times 77. 924. You can put units squared on there if you would like.
How do we get
Even if you
43?
didn't put the units, you still have to. So
How did we get 43? We added the 18 and the 25. David?
So I said, even if you don't put like the units or whatever, you say square. You should put square on.
No, if you don't write anything, you would not put a squared because then you're implying that you're squaring the number itself, and that is not correct. So we either have to have some sort of dimension squared or just leave it off if they leave it off. Other questions? All right, we have got one more. You need to fill in the missing information from your diagram. 2, we have a trapezoid and we have a rectangle. Which one's easier or quicker for us to calculate? Rectangle, what's the area of it? 60 meters squared. We have to take 10 times 6 for the rectangle, base times height. For our trapezoid, we've got to use our new formula. 1/2 times, what's my height? 5. What are my bases? 8 and 10. Notice that the rectangle's base down here is the same as the trapezoid's base in the middle there. 8 plus 10? 18 times 5
90.
is 90. Half of 90 is 45. The units on that one is also meters squared. To find the total area, what am I going to do? Add them together, and what do I get? 105 meters squared.